Welcome back, everyone. The Uncanny JMen have returned to talk about the latest installment in the MCU, Miss Marvel. As always, we are your hosts. I am Josh.
And I'm Jade.
We're excited to jump on in. All right, and be warned, there will be spoilers, as always, on these discussions. So if you have not seen episode 1 of Miss Marvel, go see it. Really, go see it. So I'll kick things off. From the very beginning, the very first line, I got excited because it felt almost self-aware, because she starts off with the line, "Finally, the moment everyone's been waiting for." Well, yeah, we've been waiting for the show for a while, and the show's here. Now, that's not what she was talking about. She was talking about her YouTube show, but it was kind of a fun way to jump into it and kind of showing that dynamic of kind of knowing the audience and talking to the audience without actually talking to the audience.
Yeah, I thought the intro sequence that was like all cut like paper craft and going over the events of Endgame and Captain Marvel and everything, because she's a super fan of Captain Marvel, as we see in the show, her like going back over the events of like how she could be a super fan of Captain Marvel, because in this universe, unlike the comics, Captain Marvel hasn't been in it a ton. Right. And so setting it up as like, oh no, Endgame, and as we've seen in other MCU projects, Endgame is world known because they brought back half the population of the entire world. So these heroes are well known now.
Mm-hmm. But this intro did answer a question that we've had. So everyone knows that something major happened because half the population just suddenly reappeared. Well, we now found out how people know the details of what happened. Scott Lang apparently has a podcast. I love that.
And that's now why he was in New York and why he was in the musical, is because he probably just said that as if like, oh yeah, no, I was there.
Maybe. Yeah. People now associate him with the heroes because he is their source of information.
Yep, I love it. I thought the intro was adorable. It was really cool. It's different. It really it set it up really well. And yeah, I just think it was a very cool and kind of set the tone for like the style of the entire episode. Yeah,
I was a little worried with the previews, the trailers leading up to the show. I love Into the Spider-Verse, the way they did the cinematography there. Well, I saw a lot of that theming in the trailers, and I was kind of worried that they were going to take it too far and they would make the live action feel too comic book. I don't know if other people maybe gave them feedback or what, but it felt a lot more scaled down from the trailers, but it added so much to the story. I think it was perfect, the amount that they had in there. And it was so much fun seeing that way of viewing this world that she's going through.
And I will say, with relating it to the comic book, is this felt like the comic book to me. So I've been reading the Miss Marvel series since like, what was it, 2006 when it started, and like this felt like those first couple episodes or first couple comic books from Miss Marvel. It was very some fantastical but rooted in reality, and it got the family dynamic and everything. So it felt like those comics. And I know that some people may have felt that like, oh, this is a show made for the younger audience, and to somewhat yes, but somewhat no. The comic book itself, when it was created, was geared towards maybe a younger audience and getting the next generation of people reading comic books, but it still is a good comic book, and it still goes over some great themes. And it's not like I didn't feel like it was like very Disney Channel-ish or like CW show-ish, which is definitely for teenagers. Like, it really still felt to me like an MCU project, where it's got the humor in it. It felt well produced. It didn't feel campy to me.
Yeah, and the show was great because it was a superhero film, but it was following a younger audience. And we've had some other superhero shows following some younger audiences. We had Hawkeye, which had a younger Hawkeye. We had WandaVision, which had Wanda's kids. So we've seen some younger heroes, but they've always kind of been more younger heroes going into the world that the older heroes have already known. This is a younger hero discovering she has powers completely separate from the older heroes. It's her story. As a young lady, it's her story completely. And I think it's so much fun. This is actually, so I have 2 kids, for anyone out there that doesn't know this. I have 2 kids. This is, but they're on the younger side. This is actually the first Marvel show or movie that they've seen. Earlier today, I talked to my wife about it. We decided, yeah, this is fine for both of them. So they saw episode 1 of Miss Marvel and they loved it. And so did I. So it fits for everyone.
Well, here's hoping that it doesn't get any like mature themes or anything down the road and you have to cut them off, right? But as of right now, it does not look like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a very big aspect of Kamala's personality and what even drives some of the biggest conflicts in the first episode. She's a massive Avengers fan, and especially a Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel. Sorry, Captain Marvel. She was Miss Marvel at some point in the comic books as well. Right. That's why it's still in my head. But Captain Marvel fan to the point where she's doing kind of what we're doing right now, where she is a fan making videos, making content, super fan.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a really fun way to view this. I mean, I love shows like this where we analyze comic book worlds. So, and clearly we love it as we're doing it. It's always been something that's been a lot of fun. You see the MCU, you see these superhero movies, you follow the superheroes, you develop all these theories and all these thoughts on what might actually be happening, what might be behind the scenes, what they might not be telling us. Well, it's a lot of fun watching someone who actually lives in the world with real superheroes doing this, coming up with her own theories, trying to put the pieces together. And you see, even with her little intro, that she doesn't get everything right. Cap's shield is broken, but it's not the same type of break. There's like a little divot out of it. Well, if she's getting her source of information from Scott Lang's podcast, she wouldn't have seen how the shield broke. So she hears that the shield breaks and she says, okay, she pokes a divot out. So it's fun watching her put the pieces together. Right in a lot of ways, maybe wrong in some ways. But yeah, it is a blast.
Yeah, and I'm loving, like, even though we talked about the comic bookiness of some of the trailers, and in this, it's like more of her imagination. They show things on the real world around her. It's like in her imagination, but we get to see what it looks like, which does make it feel a little bit more comic booky without it actually being like, here's a comic book like word bubble. I mean, they do somewhat like that with like walking down the street texting, where it shows up on the environment, which is very nice. I think it's a really cool style that they use for this.
Oh yeah, that's a great sequence. Yeah.
But yeah, I think they really got the like comic book style without being campy comic book.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
now, a big part of this in that line is, so we kind of get a feel for how she is when she gets to be herself. So she's zoning out or she's talking with Bruno. She has those moments where she's imagining things a little differently. Her head's in the clouds. We get a lot of people who are trying to get her to stop doing that. A lot of parental figures. It's interesting that the message they keep sending to her, they keep telling her that she needs to figure out who she is. That's what they're saying, but it's clear that the message is not that she needs to figure out who she is that they want her to figure out how to be a normal adult. They want her to choose to be what they want her to be. But throughout the episode, we see she knows who she is. She has to have her life figured out. Well, she already knows the type of person that she is. She knows what types of things she loves to be a part of. So I just thought it was very interesting, that dynamic of so many people saying, you need to figure out who you are. That's not really what they mean.
mean, that's a common theme in her comic books as well, as figuring out who she is, and once even when she has powers and is a superhero, is figuring out what kind of superhero she wants to be, which is why
Yeah.
she's one of the founding members of the Champions, where they're trying to do better, be better, not just be a superhero, but like be responsible for their actions. And I think that's really showing like she is her own person. Yeah, she might be a little stubborn towards her family, but she's growing to be her own person. I mean, I love the part where she's getting fitted for her sari, and they're like, oh yeah, this girl, she broke off her engagement, she's traveling around the world. She's like, good for her.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what?
Yeah, she could have just left that and
Yeah,
just minded her own business, but that's not who she is. She wanted to stand up for this girl that she doesn't even know. Yeah,
exactly. I will say we introduced you mentioned the name Bruno, her right hand man in this show. I love that they put a Encanto reference in there
they did.
with no Bruno.
No, Bruno. It's like, yeah, all right.
They love doing that. I mean,
Yeah,
in Encanto they have like a Frozen reference. And like in this they have an Encanto, like it's a Disney property now.
yeah,
So we're gonna see things like that. I appreciate it. It's very small. It was very cool.
yeah. I literally laughed out loud when that happened. I thought it was great.
Well, what do you think about Bruno and his technical abilities?
I love the character. He's a lot of fun. You look at this and you're like, okay, there's superpowers that a lot of people have. But then there's kind of the secondary power that often shows up in the MCU with heroes that are incredibly intelligent and what they're able to achieve through that. And in some ways, achieve even more using that than through their powers. I kind of enjoy seeing Bruno, who feels like a realistic version of that. So we have Tony Stark, who inverts a Mobius strip and suddenly he has time travel. We have Peter Parker, who, oh, he knows geometry. Okay, great. Now he knows how the entire realm that he was put in with Doctor Strange works.
The mirror dimension, yeah.
The mirror dimension, yeah. It's a lot of very like, I'm brilliant, therefore I know exactly what to do in all these situations. Bruno is inventing things that already exist. He invented just like he set up a smart house with his own little hub. I mean, we can get those. Those really exist, but he made his own version of it with his own tweaks. He made gloves. He made photon gloves. They're gloves that light up. So he's very smart. He understands how things work. He loves to tinker, but he's also realistic in it. So it's just a very fun character, and seeing how that fits in with Kamala's story of she's becoming an actual superhero. She's gaining the power. She's becoming a part of this world that she loves. And her best friend Bruno is kind of the man behind the chair, or the man in the chair.
The man in the chair.
Just very literally, he's or not literally in the chair, but like he's very much filling that role of just kind of this brainy thing that just loves being the support, which could definitely be seen in their costumes.
Yeah,
he helped her make this amazing costume, and then he puts on a lab coat to be Bruce Banner, not the Hulk. He's Bruce Banner.
Although him dressing up as Bruce Banner, if she did show up in the Little Hulk and Big Hulk, it would have went all together really well. I feel like, all right, here's a theory just off the top of my head. Bruno was in on it with the parents. He was like, yeah, if this is the only way we can go, then Little Hulk, Big Hulk, I'm coming as Bruce Banner. And he was prepped for it and ready to go.
Yeah, we know that the parents and Bruno text with each other because they bring that up in the show when Kamala tells her mom she needs to stop texting Bruno. And so we know that they have an awesome relationship, which is so much fun to see. So yeah, they definitely could have been like, Kamala told us about the get together. We have a great idea. Abu is going to go as the Hulk. And he's like, great, I got a lab coat. Yeah, I can definitely see that being the case.
And I also love how
mental canon.
Yeah, mental canon. I also love how Bruno's inventions aren't like the Zuzu, which is basically like the Alexa Siri
Yeah.
hub that he creates. Um, it doesn't work towards the end where
Yeah.
he's like, it's like not quite there, and also looks very rough because he doesn't have money like Tony Stark did, or like Shuri does, or any of these other inventor types. I mean, it's more closely resembles Homecoming Spider-Man outfit, where it's like definitely homemade things. They're not very fancy looking.
Yeah.
Um, I know in the comics he eventually, this might be a spoiler, I don't know, but eventually in the comic books he actually goes and studies in Wakanda and
Oh,
gets
nice.
much better at his mechanical engineering. And so maybe, I mean, we have an Wakanda movie coming out
We do.
at some point. Who knows if he actually is going to be have a cameo in that in the background somewhere? You never know.
Yeah. It's only 5 months away from now, so about 4 months from when this show's going to end. So
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be fun.
Another character that I enjoyed, which had a very small part, was Mr. Wilson, the student counselor, or
Love cats. Yes.
I thought he was just a fun addition to just like, I mean, it reiterates a lot of the same things that the parents were reiterating about. Find out who you are, get your head out of the clouds. A lot of the same stuff, but it was just, I thought he was very funny, and they played off of each other really well.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very much the stereotype for a guidance counselor. He was saying all the cliches that they feel like they're supposed to say. He clearly cared and wanted to see her succeed, and knew she was at that point of life where she needs to start looking to after high school, but still at that mental state where she was still kind of lost in her life in high school. But yeah, and I like the name too, because I believe that was the creator of Miss Marvel was named Wilson, G. Willow Wilson, something like that. So I don't remember the exact name, but it was something along those lines. So kind of giving that reference there was kind of fun.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing I'll say, I actually think this may be, and this may be controversial for some people, but I think this felt like one of the best acted shows out of all of them. But I think part of that might be because it was more like slice of life style
Yeah.
than actiony. I feel like a lot of times actiony actors feel like, to me, like they're actors acting, whereas because this is more of like, this is life, this is what life looks like, it was people in what felt like much more natural, that didn't necessarily, like, even it is acting, obviously it doesn't feel as much like acting. It felt like people doing what they would normally be doing as those people in those situations. I don't know why, but I just felt like this is some of the best acting I've seen, even if it wasn't this fantastic kind of space adventure yet.
Yeah, it was very good. I definitely felt immersed. I felt like I was watching this thing actually happening. So yeah, I think they did a great job.
Yeah, Abu felt like the father figure that's goofy but serious and gets his feelings hurt, but doesn't like taking out on her. Like when he showed up as Big Hulk, and she was just like, "This is so embarrassing." Like, and he's just like, and just kind of walks out. I'm like, that's that. I feel like that's relatable to people, where it's like, yeah, the disappointment of the goofy father or something like that, it kind of almost stings more than anger does or anything.
And he thought she was going to love it, because Avengers Con was the next day, which means he put on all that makeup, set up that whole suit just for the reveal, for the reveal to her, because he was going to have to take all that off and then put it all back on tomorrow. So like you knew he was excited for that. I wish I could have gone to Avengers Con with him. I agree. Love to go with that type of person with that much enthusiasm, even just for the experience, even if they're not as knowledgeable about the Avengers.
And I also love Big Hulk, Little Hulk, and we're about to get She-Hulk, which is like Bruce Banner, Big Hulk to She-Hulk, Little Hulk. Like, yeah. Because right now there is no She-Hulk known in that universe, so it's Big Hulk, Little Hulk, not Hulk and She-Hulk.
Right.
Love that little thing was there as well, and also that it was the Pakistani outfit, like clothes designed with Hulk, and that kind of may be why we see Miss Marvel trailers have her outfit that she ends up in is a lot more inspired by her heritage instead of it being more inspired by Miss Marvel. It's a mashup because she does bring some of that heritage in, exactly like what her mother was saying. It's like, oh, bring something that's about you, or that the competition, they want something that's more you brought to the costume. It brings it all together in that way in the future.
Yeah, you can tell she is proud and happy of her heritage. When she's doing the errands with her mom, it's not 100% of I don't want to be here. It's she's finding ways to enjoy these things, like the wrist jewelry. She was just enjoying dressing up in that way. She saw the what is it called, the wrist item,
The bangle.
bangle. Thank you. She sees the bangle and she's like, this is really cool. I mean, she didn't know it would give powers. She just saw it as a part of her heritage, something from her grandmother that
Which,
she thought was very interesting.
let's talk about that for a second.
Definitely.
From her grandmother.
Yeah. I want to meet his grandmother.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be some sort of, it's got to be some sort of reveal of who she is.
We see in trailers that there is scenes that look like they take place in Pakistan, and that's where I believe, and it seems to be where Red Dagger comes into this show.
Yeah.
The character Red Dagger that we saw in the trailers. So maybe she gets to meet the grandmother and figure out where the bangle came from. I think that'd be great in some ways, because I mean, again, we talked about this when the trailers came out. If you did not go, like, you've seen the first episode, go back, look at our trailer breakdown, because one of the things we talk about is the whole Kamala falling backwards through the ground, coming up in this other zone, and then she came. I thought she was going to spend more time there, but I think that's coming.
Yeah.
But feels like the negative zone to me. It looks like the negative zone to me.
Yeah.
So I think, and also there was a part where she wrote a comic, I believe, or something, and it looked like it had a nihilist as the enemy in that comic.
Oh, interesting.
It was very Annihilus looking, and that's where he's from, as the negative zone. So I don't know if it was kind of hinting at a future Annihilus event. I mean, we have the Marvels coming out. Who knows? Maybe Annihilus is the villain because the negative zone is broken open and he comes out due to this show.
Yeah.
Never know.
But on the topic of the grandmother, you know 100% that the grandmother had powers in some way. Not just because we got the bangle that came from the grandmother. There are ways that it could have come from the grandmother and she herself didn't have powers. But the fact that everything that the mother says, every time the mother brings up the grandmother, it's in relation to how similar she is to Kamala. Like she says, when Kamala doesn't get the driver's license, when she crashes the car, she says the mother says she blames herself because it's in her DNA. She comes from a long line of fantasizers and daydreamers. My mother was one. And then later on, when she's talking about the mother again, the mother says, I've seen what happens when people get obsessed with their fantasies. And then Kamala interrupts and says, I know you're just going to give me another story about Nani. The mother says, if you know what I'm going to say, then. So like, yeah, so this is clearly something the mother has dwelt on, is that the grandmother, that Nani, has had her head in the clouds, has been engrossed in her fantasies through her whole life, this has been a big part of her life. But she's not here as part of the family right now. So yeah, there's a connection there. And that's one that we know Kamala is going to be searching for.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if we're going to see any mention at all about Inhumans in this show, just because mention of blood being in your blood and everything, that's very reminiscent of Inhumans. For those who don't know, who didn't read the comics or anything like that, Miss Marvel is an Inhuman in the comics. As of right now, we can't say that she will be in the MCU, solely because the Inhumans project that was done was kind of not, it was part of MCU, but not part of MCU. They haven't really done much with it. So I'm not sure if they're really going to introduce that or not. But if they're talking about blood, that maybe her grandmother was an Inhuman that was exposed to the Terrigen Mist and became an actual Inhuman and had these bangles as well. Or she just had the bangles and wasn't really seen as Inhuman. But the mention of blood just really makes you think that there may be something with Inhumans going on here. And who knows? maybe we got that bangle comes on, we got this crystalline structures showing up. Terrigen was contained within crystals. Who knows if that bangle, even though I think it has to do with the negative zone and being one of the power bracelets that we talked about in our review, but who knows if maybe it's a Terrigen powered thing, and those crystals really are just Terrigen crystals that are transforming her into an human.
I had the exact same thought. I've actually, it's in my to-do list to research this a little more, to watch the episode with more detail and find the links, because yeah, you do see multiple times throughout this episode kind of subtle hints on the whole Inhuman front, the feeling of it.
Yep.
Even the end credit scene with the Department of Damage Control, the two people from the Department of Damage Control, you see their desk is filled with all these things about people, about different people, and they say, "Oh, this looks like someone who legitimately has powers. Bring him in." So it looks like this is something that they've been tracking. They've been finding people with powers already.
Yep.
The damage control, there could be a little more control happening here than we initially thought. And Inhumans would be a big way that would fit in. So I had the same thought about the bangle, that the bangle might not be giving her the power. That might be what they want us to think, to make us think it's not Inhumans. But it could be just that it had enough Terrigen mist. And when we saw the lights going over her, that was her chrysalis phase of the powers manifesting themselves.
Yeah, it could be. Because I mean, in the I know that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is and isn't considered canon, depending, but in that they talk about the impurities within the Terrigen crystals that they have, that's kind of causes some of the problems with the chrysalis phase and everything. So this could be purified crystals. Like, who knows? We're not sure. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I love that she gets her powers and she's like stunned first, because I would be, if I had powers all of a sudden. If I've wanted powers my whole life too. I've been reading comic books my whole life. It makes you kind of want to have powers. If I randomly found out I had powers, I would be floored. I would just be like, what?
Now what? Which of the million things I've wanted to do I do first? Yeah. And it was fun too, because her powers seem to be light related. It looks like it's like a manipulation of light type of thing, where she's transforming the light into solid matter. And it was tied into the effects that she was seeing right off the bat. People were taking pictures and you see the flashes. Light was bothering her. It was having much more of an impact on her than it normally does. And that's when she reaches out, and then the lights that were bothering her, that were causing her to feel disoriented and confused, she then grabbed control of it. So it's just kind of fun seeing that connection on how exactly this is coming to be.
Yeah, I agree. So it, like, her power is manifesting. We get to see it pretty quickly. She's definitely in some turmoil with her family because of sneaking out late and coming back. Her family dynamic feels very real, as well as like what a family could be like. I'm excited to see where this goes. There's not a whole lot of episodes in any MCU series, so it's going to have to move relatively quickly. As of right now, there's no big bad. Maybe that is the Department of Damage Control. It very much could be. I think we'll see more as it gets on, but I don't want to take up too much time talking about all of those things necessarily. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
Yeah. So first off, I do want to clarify. We know that it's the Department of Damage Control because the guy at the end is the same guy that interviewed Peter Parker in No Way Home. And at that point, he was wearing apparel that said DDoC, which we know from the comics is the Department of Damage Control, DODC. So clarification there. The one other topic I definitely want to bring up. Now, you know the comics better than I do, and I know she's in the comics, but the character of Chloe and what the relationship is there. You got the feeling from the trailers that it was going to be like she's the bully, or there's like a animosity there. They don't like each other. But when they bump into each other on the stairs, it's like they're not sure whether to fight or to compliment each other. And then at the convention, I genuinely got the feeling that Chloe is also a big Miss Marvel fan, or Captain Marvel, a big Captain Marvel fan. When she kind of lost the competition, I guess, and Kamala got like kind of accolades for her amazing show, Chloe was genuinely excited for her. She was so excited to just experience someone who outdid her and had this amazing setup. She was asking if she did birthday parties for you. Like, are you asking her to come to your birthday party as Captain Marvel?
I don't know if she knew she was Kamala at that point or not, because she still had the helmet on.
Yeah, it was questionable there. You do see she's looking over when Bruno helps her up. So I wonder if she put the pieces together there. So it's possible that she knows now. But I definitely feel like that's going to become a relationship where they end up having a connection. They make a connection around their love of Captain Marvel. I'll be curious to see where that goes.
Yeah, Chloe is in the comic books as a friend, but was kind of middle ground friend, not like one of her two closest friends. But definitely, I believe she was the one who becomes a love interest to why am I blinking on her name? The other friend, not Bruno, but the female friend.
Yeah.
I forget her name. I believe they become an item in the comic books. I'm not positive those are the two characters I'm thinking of, but I think that's the case. Okay. So we'll see.
Yeah, they do seem to want to follow the comics, so yeah, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah. So we don't take up too much time. What were your final thoughts on this first episode of this new series, Miss Marvel?
I was so disappointed when it ended because I wanted so much more. I feel like the way there's so many things that they just hit it out of the park. The cinematography, the way that they had kind of like the text conversation fitting it into the world around, they had comic book feels to it, but even those were kind of fit into the real world, put into realistic ways. So they were really part of what was around, even though they also weren't. In walking through the town and their ideas are manifesting themselves on the buildings, the whole experience was just so much fun watching their imagination throughout this adventure. And you immediately come to love just every single one of these characters. So I feel like it was an amazing start. We don't really have a villain yet, and I'm okay with that. Just being able to watch this launch, the launch of Miss Marvel, was a treat. So I think they did a great job, and I'm super excited for next week. What do you think?
I'll agree. So what my thoughts on it are that this is probably the closest any MCU project has been to the source material. This has been very, very closely, besides Avengers Con directly, this has been very, very similar. It felt like I was watching the comics come to life, whereas I feel like a lot of the other projects have been adaptations, and a lot of people, there have been people who comment like, oh, this never had, like, this is not what's happened in the comics, or deviating too far from the comics. You can't complain about that here. Yeah. I mean, the powers are different. Yes, they're still showing in the same way. So I don't find that much of a problem. We saw her stretch her arm out using her powers. Yeah. The same end result happens. Yeah, they're a little bit different in origin, but I think that origin is going to feed into a much bigger story. I'm very, very excited to see where that goes. Miss Marvel has been one of my favorite comic books to read of the last decade. So I'm more than thrilled to see it finally hit the screen. All right. That was our recap and discussion on the first episode of Miss Marvel. Thank you for watching. We are Uncanny JMen, and if you like this, please like and subscribe below. We also have a bell notification icon there so that you get notified. Make sure when we get episode 2, episode 3, that you know that we're coming. We're going to be doing discussions every week, and you will hear from us after every episode. We'll be probably just as excited every time.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
watching.
watching.